What would you do if you found yourself face to face with one of the Arctic's top predators? You're known for their size and strength. Polar bears are awe-inspiring but incredibly dangerous. How do these rare encounters with humans happen, and what drives a polar bear to attack? Come to today's video. The story of the polar bear attack at the Berlin Zoo is one that sends shivers down my spine, not just for its intensity, but for the frightening unpredictability of the situation. On April 10, 2009, during a regular afternoon at the zoo, a shocking incident unfolded that reminded everyone of the power and danger of these magnificent creatures, even those born and raised in captivity. As I delved into the details of that day, I realized how quickly awe and admiration for wildlife can turn into fear. It was a spring day, and the Berlin Zoo, one of Germany's oldest and most famous zoos, was bustling with families, tourists, and children eager to see Nut, the world-famous polar bear cub who had captured hearts worldwide. Although Nut wasn't directly involved in this attack, it was his enclosure that was part of the incident. The attack, involving another polar bear in the same enclosure area, shocked everyone present and left a lasting impact on those who witnessed it. The zoo had visitors from all over the world that day, including a 32-year-old woman who would soon become the center of a life-threatening situation. For reasons no one fully understood, the woman scaled the fence surrounding the polar bear exhibit and climbed down into the enclosure. Witnesses, zookeepers, and even the authorities later could not determine her motive. Some speculated it was an attempt at a stunt, while others suggested it could have been a cry for help or an episode related to mental health. For what is certain is that her actions that day placed her in immediate danger, entering a space with some of the most powerful predators in the world. Polar bears, even those born in captivity, are still wild animals with instincts to hunt and protect their territory. Weighing up to 1,200 pounds and equipped with massive paws and powerful jaws, they're built for survival in the harsh Arctic. And even in a zoo, they remain unpredictable. The moment the woman entered their space, they perceived her as a potential threat or perhaps as prey. As she made her way into the enclosure, the atmosphere shifted. The zoo's crowd, initially confused, quickly became horrified as people realized what was happening. Suddenly, one of the adult polar bears noticed her and began moving toward her. In a flash, the bear lunged at her, knocking her into the water surrounding the enclosure. Onlookers gasped as they watched the massive bear close the distance between them, its powerful limbs moving swiftly. Zookeepers and staff scrambled to respond, quickly calling in emergency services and working to distract the bears. They began throwing food into the water, desperately trying to pull the bear's attention away from the woman. At that point, the bear had already latched onto her arm, pulling her underwater, which only heightened the panic of the crowd. Many screamed, some turned away, and parents shielded their children from the gruesome sight. Rescue efforts were challenging and dangerous. Several zookeepers and emergency personnel entered the enclosure from a safe vantage point, trying to use poles to push the bear away from her. But the bear was unrelenting, and it took several minutes of careful coordination to finally separate the woman from the bear's grasp and get her to safety. The woman sustained severe injuries, including deep bite wounds to her arms and legs, and was immediately rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, she survived, but the ordeal left physical and psychological scars that would stay with her forever. This incident left the Berlin Zoo and its staff shaken. In the days that followed, there was a significant focus on understanding what had happened, and more importantly, on ensuring this could never happen again. Zoos worldwide are highly regulated, with strict protocols to protect both the animals and visitors, but this event highlighted a weakness in the assumption that people would adhere to basic safety rules. Security measures were reviewed, and Berlin Zoo increased its barriers and security around enclosures to prevent any future incidents. Looking back on this tragic event, I can't help but feel a deep sense of respect for the power and unpredictability of wild animals, especially those like polar bears. These animals are not domesticated pets, they are wild by nature, even if they live in an enclosure. As amazing as they are to observe, they are still capable of the instincts that have helped them survive in the wilderness for millennia. Story 2. The story of historical bear hunts in the Bavarian Alps is one that brings a mix of fascination, respect, and unease for the legacy of the brown bears that once roamed the mountainous landscapes of southern Germany. While today bears are mostly absent from the Bavarian Alps, there was a time when these mountains were home to Europe's largest land predators. Bavarian hunters and villagers once lived alongside these powerful animals, their lives shaped by the constant tension between survival and respect for the natural world. My exploration of the history of bear hunting in the Bavarian Alps began with an interest in the region's early interactions between humans and wildlife. I traveled to Bavaria, where I dug into the records and folklore of bear hunts, spoke to local historians, and even wandered the quiet mountain trails where these majestic animals once walked. The story of bears in Bavaria is as much about survival as it is about the human desire to conquer nature and tame wild spaces. One of the most notable bear hunts in Bavarian history occurred on October 13, 1815. This particular hunt is famous not only for the size of the bear, known as Der König der Alpen, the King of the Alps, but also for the extraordinary efforts it took to track and kill the animal. For weeks, reports of a massive bear terrorizing livestock around the village of Garmisch-Partenkirchen had spread throughout the region. Villagers were losing sheep and cattle, and the bear had even ventured dangerously close to some of the local farms. At that time, bears were seen as a serious threat to livelihoods and safety, so the destruction of livestock was not only a financial loss but also threatened the food supply for families, so the decision was made to organize a hunt. Local hunters and villagers were recruited for what would become one of the most intense bear hunts Bavaria had ever seen. Among them was a seasoned hunter named Johann Gruber, who was known for his skill and bravery. Gruber took the lead, understanding that this bear was no ordinary adversary. On the morning of October 13th, Gruber and his fellow hunters set off into the mist-covered mountains. They followed the bear's tracks through dense forest, where visibility was low, and the path was challenging. The hunt went on for hours, pushing the men to their limits. Finally, around midday, they spotted the King of the Alps near a rocky outcrop, towering over them, unmistakably massive and powerful. As the men closed in, they realized the true size of the creature. This was no ordinary bear. It stood nearly 8 feet tall on its hind legs and weighed close to 800 pounds. The ensuing battle was fierce and relentless. The bear, sensing it was cornered, did not flee. Instead, it stood its ground and charged at the men. In the chaos, one of the hunters, a young man named Matthias Wagner, was gravely injured. The bear had swiped at him, leaving deep gashes along his torso. Wagner was quickly pulled to safety by his fellow hunters, but his injuries would leave him scarred for life. The men continued their fight with the bear, eventually succeeding after several rounds of gunfire. The King of the Alps fell, but it took nearly everything the men had to bring it down. The bear's death was met with a mixture of relief and sorrow. For many of the villagers, this bear was not just an enemy, but a powerful symbol of the wilderness that surrounded them. They respected the bear's strength and resilience, and they knew that, in some ways, they were losing a part of their natural heritage. In the years that followed, bear populations in the Bavarian Alps dwindled. Between hunting pressures and the expansion of human settlements, the bears were gradually pushed out, with the last confirmed sighting of a native Bavarian bear happening in the late 19th century. Today, conservation efforts across Europe have led to the reintroduction of some bear populations, but the Bavarian Alps remain largely bear-free. Stories of those early hunts are preserved in Bavarian folklore, passed down through generations as both warnings and tributes to the animals that once called the mountains home. The history of bear hunting in Bavaria offers valuable lessons for us today. We live in a time when bears are endangered or protected in many parts of the world, including Germany, where any bear that wanders into the country is closely monitored. Conservationists have worked hard to create a world where humans and wildlife can coexist, learning from the mistakes of the past. If you found this information useful, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest videos on wildlife safety and survival tips. Stay prepared, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.